Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hello and welcome to Keto Life Support episode number 101. So happy to have you here with me today. We have a special episode in which I am talking with Joe and Rachel from Krazy Ketos. We just had a really good time talking together, so I hope you enjoy our chat, the video of which will also be on YouTube. So enjoy.
So I'm so happy to be joined today with the two Krazy Ketos, Rachel and Joe.
What's going on?
Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Thanks so much for having us.
Good, I'm good. So I think a lot of people already know who you are, but who are you?
Well, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rachel.
Okay. And we're two Krazy Ketos, and I've been doing the keto lifestyle I just celebrated 5 years.
And I'm four years that we've been keto. But before that, we were everything you can imagine, like kitchen sink of dieting. When you talk about diet fatigue, like that you're calling my name, because yes, we have done it all, tried it all. And we're both very morbidly obese for decades. So this wasn't like something where it was just when we had kids or just when we got older. But this is something that we have struggled with our weight since we were in elementary school, even.
Okay. So you had a big journey once you found keto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I found keto because I was in a weight loss bet with a bunch of people at church. But
Nice.
It was for fat loss. Like it was all about, we all had like our fat measurements taken. So it wasn't about pounds lost. It had to be like actual fat loss. And I was trying to do the CrossFit thing, and then our CrossFit closed, and I was like, we were getting a significant, like 50% discount.
Now.
And I'm like, I can't afford, $150 a month for CrossFit. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I started looking around, and I just stumbled across keto, and I'm like, well, you know what? I did Atkins years ago. I had success until I decided one day to let me reintroduce bread for a couple of days, and
it'll be fine.
Right. I'll get back on it the next day.
Yeah.
And of course that never happened.
Says everyone.
And it really interested me, but I only found it for weight loss. I didn't know anything about all of the health benefits and losing inflammation and everything else to it. But I enjoyed it. I got Rachel to try it.
To stay married, basically.
She was like, you're not eating all of that
You started
food.
a year before Rachel.
Well, so I started a year before Rachel. Rachel did it for a month. About a month after I started, Rachel did it. She only lost a pound.
Yes.
And she's like, this doesn't work. So she went back to eating just oatmeal and yogurt every day.
Because I had dieted so much throughout my entire life that I felt like the only way that I could maintain any reasonable number on the scale was to drastically calorie restrict.
Right.
So for 2 years, I had done nothing but eaten oatmeal and
half a cup of
Greek yogurt a day. So basically I had my calories
like a bowl of oatmeal and a half a cup of Greek. That was your
one cup.
diet?
It was 1 cup of uncooked, and she would cook it up so it would feel like
so
a big
much
bowl.
water. So it was a half a cup in the morning and a half a cup in the evening. And with my breakfast, it was half a cup of Greek yogurt. So it was about 500 calories a day is what I was eating at that point. So when he started keto and is eating all of this fatty deliciousness, and I've had no variety at all for 2 years, I thought, well, I need to try this. But honestly, I probably would have failed at anything, because when you go from that kind of calorie restricting to eating at all, the guilt of eating made you be afraid and go back to what you were used to. So I stayed on the oatmeal diet.
You returned to the abuser.
I returned to the devil that I knew.
Well, the thing about her 500 calories is that she had lost almost 100 pounds eating that way for 2 years.
Wow.
And then slowly, without changing her diet, began gaining it weight back and gained 70 pounds back.
Yes.
On 500
on
calories.
your oatmeal and Greek yogurt diet.
Only me could I gain, being super disciplined, because there was no negotiation. It was basically like on my birthday or anniversary, then I would have like a slice of cake or something. That would be like the celebratory thing. And then, back on your heads the next day. And I was super disciplined about it. There was no variation. There was no cheat days other than, my birthday and anniversary. And the rest of the time I was eating this miserable diet. I hated my life as far as eating went. And I gained 70 pounds. So when Joe was continuing to have success, I thought I need to give this another shot, or like, I'm just going to hate his guts. And I did not want to do that. We had just gotten through, it was a February that I got back into it, because in January I had done some fasting for like the beginning of the year. And Joe's like, hey, now's the time. Let's start over.
We measured her ketones because at the time she was drinking like 1 Slim Fast a day and a bottle of coconut water. So I measured her ketones. I'm like, I guarantee you, your calories are so low at this point, you've got to be in ketosis. And her ketones were like a 3.2.
Right.
So I said to her, listen,
surviving on body fat at that point.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I had said to her, I want you to come back on keto with me. And she said, I will do it only if you cook everything that goes in my mouth.
That was the most brilliant thing that I ever came up with in my life, because 4 years later, for the most part, I mean, he's still like, I still cook stuff enough to stay alive if he's not around. But yeah, he cooks most of the food. So It was a good wager.
Deal. Yeah. And since then, so how much weight have you guys lost?
It was at least 100 pounds. My last known weight on a scale was 285 pounds. I know I was over 300, but I got to that point on the scale. And at that point, once I got to that point, I'm like, I never wanted to see 300. And it's like, you know what you don't know isn't there. So I didn't get on a scale for about 7 months, but my sizes went up 2 or 3 sizes. So I know I was over 300, but I just said my last known weight was 285. And over the course of about 5 months, I dropped 100 pounds. Wow. But for me, what was more incredible for me was I have a lot of pins in my ankle from a car accident when I was 20 years old. And I spent 2 years on crutches. I was told I would never walk again. I was able to walk, but I've always walked with a severe limp. I was told I needed to fuse it, and that eventually I would need like some kind of an ankle replacement. And I'm also a sports official. And that year, the pain had gotten so bad. I was on arthritis and painkillers on almost a daily basis for 25 years. The pain had gotten so bad that I told Rachel, this is my last year. I can't officiate anymore. They're telling me I need an ankle replacement, but it's going to be a minimum of a year recovery. Oh, yeah. And I don't know how you do that when you're a sports official and a landscaper. And so I was freaking out. And 6 months into keto, I looked at Rachel and I'm like, I haven't taken a painkiller or arthritis pill in 6 months. I didn't even know I wasn't taking it. I just didn't need it. So I stopped taking it, but I didn't know that I wasn't taking it. It just occurred to me in the middle of football season that I'm not in any more pain anymore.
The last time I had stepped on a scale, I was 268. But again, I continued gaining weight after that point until finally I was in a size 22, 24, but I wasn't really able to button myself up anymore. It was the dive into the bed, zip up at the same time simultaneously. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not super sure exactly where I was, but definitely heading right around 300. Yeah. And then since then, like as of today's date, I'm 157. So, and depending on the pants, because size is depends on who's making it, right? So there's some things that I'm like a 0 in, some things a 2, some things a 4. So also don't judge yourself by your size, what the label says, but what are you fitting into an outfit that you really like? And you're like, I look cute today. I kind of judge myself by that, because don't look at the label, because every size is different. And it's the same for guys, because I have 3 boys, 3 man children, and they all wear different sizes depending on the pants too. So I thought it was like, if you're a 34 waist, isn't that always like you're 34 waist and 34 long? But it's not necessarily true with that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's amazing. And then since then, you've just been maintaining, living your life, trying to be healthy.
I always say, I don't think there's any such thing as maintenance. And I think that when you get to the weight that you want to be, I think it's harder than losing it. We're always tweaking.
Yeah.
We're always like, when I got started on keto, it was no more than, 6 ounces of protein, 6 to 8 cups of vegetables. There were no keto products on the market.
No,
it was like keto bar.
There was nothing. People were
in a
keto bar,
box.
like the one with just like the erythritol and coconut oil. Was the only thing out there. And then people were buying Quest stuff, which I never liked. There was nothing out there. So it was pretty whole food.
Right.
A lot of people would eat Quest and I'm like, I don't like the ingredients and that kind of stuff. But over time, it was, well, what else? We started off like Dr. Berry says, you can, do keto on hot dogs and mustard. And we started off with
fit our budget,
what we could afford. And as we started realizing I'm not spending $178 a month on arthritis medication anymore, and we're not spending $7 a day on a Starbucks drink anymore, and we're not buying $5 bags of potato chips, we started taking that money and putting it into better quality food. Like the first thing we did was ditch the seed oils.
Yeah,
when I first started, we were doing seed oils and I didn't know any better. And then as we met Dr. Berry, we were like, okay, seed oil's bad. And then we bought better quality eggs. And I remember I went to Rachel, I'm like, we were the 79 cent a dozen at Aldi.
Sure,
and I went to her, I'm like, I want to buy the better eggs. And she's like, how much are they? I'm like, $4 to $6 a dozen. She's like, no.
Are you crazy?
No.
You guys should come to a farmer's market around me. It's ridiculous. You can buy like $20 egg. No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can find them less, but there are some very special eggs out there.
I know, right? These are panda massage chickens, definitely. And I did the same thing Joe did. I started to notice, wow, I don't have the skin issues anymore. There is no more eczema. I always had like rosacea, like really terrible blotches. I had a lot of back acne. All of a sudden it was gone. I had plantar fasciitis for years and years. And then all of a sudden it was gone. And I could just go and buy cute shoes I saw at the mall. I mean, the fact that I could wear a pair of heels again was like a miracle because, you had to have special shoes because your feet were always hurting. I lived my entire life has been, I've had a lot of hormonal issues and anxiety and depression. So it's always been like kind of battling that, headaches, migraines, like just all kinds of things. And I thought, that is so weird. I haven't purchased Allegra. I haven't purchased any Benadryl. There was just no more dandruff.
She used to get cold sore outbreaks at least one a month, and she hasn't had one in 4 years.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so that stuff, if you go to the store and you just go through CVS or Walgreens and you're like, okay, I'm just going to total up what was normally in my medicine cabinet. It was like, dude, we didn't need Beano anymore to like stay married. We didn't need Pepto-Bismol anymore. Like
I used to drink that stuff all the time.
Right. So did I. We didn't need Tums. There was so much stuff and it really started to add up. And so then I was like, okay, let's move this into what we call our ribeye budget. So any money that was there, we would move into that. And what was really strange to us was when our pest control guy came out, and we live in South Florida. We have a lot of bugs. We just do. And we have things like roaches and palmetto bugs. And we had a normal treatment of our house. And the pest control guy said, what are you doing? You have no more bugs at all in the kitchen. There's nothing here to treat. There's no traces of them. But we had gotten rid of all of our like McCormick gravy seasoning and the Taco Bell stuff that came in.
And you would open up our
pouches.
cabinet in the middle of the night, and we have palmetto bugs, which are like flying roaches, which you can't get rid of. But they would have eaten through the plastic bag, through the McCormick seasoning
because there's sugar in there. But we just had
the maltodextrin and stuff.
You starved out the bugs.
We stopped being a bed and breakfast for infestation. So, it's not, because so sometimes people are like, gosh, you're spending a lot of money going out to Texas de Brazil, or you're spending a lot of money. I see you bought a whole share of a cow. But if you totaled up all of the other expenditures that we had that we do not have anymore after keto,
well, the thing is
more
that
than enough.
Before keto, we were, again, We have 3 children. Our youngest is going to be 21 this month.
You guys don't look old enough that those are your children.
Bless you, Kim.
My oldest is 25.
Yes, 25.
And, but the thing is that we were those crazy coupon people. We were saving like $1,500 to $2,000 a month on coupons. We would make it a challenge. Like, how cheaply can we feed our family for a day? And we got down to at one point where we could feed the entire family of 5 for $3 a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was things like buy one, get one free yakisoba noodles using a buy one, get one free coupon.
Nutrition.
You know, and that was what we were. I mean, our grocery budget was, you know, probably half of what the average person is. And I look now, if you totaled in our groceries with what we were spending on medicine and what we were spending on like going out for Starbucks, we spend 50% less now than we did then. And we each eat almost 2 pounds of beef a day.
Yeah. It's able to be done with a family, with a budget. It just, for us to sticking with it, totally came down to exactly what you talked about in your Stop Doing This, Stop Spinning video. And that is, I started to prefer the experience I was having on keto more than I preferred my life before keto. So once I truly preferred this, I chose it. It was my decision. Then nothing could stop me. When it wasn't my preference to get well and to feel well every single day, then yeah, you could go back to the way that you used to live easily. But once I started to prefer this life, then it made sticking to it a lot easier. And we wanted to stick to it because we had family members that we loved, that we wanted them to give it a shot. But we knew that if we wavered, it would be an excuse for them to waver. And I had just lost my father to a widowmaker heart attack. We did not have that ride to the hospital where everybody decides, okay, when we get out of the hospital, we're going to change some things. Like, that's what I wanted. I wanted that ride to the hospital. And like, this is a close call and we're going to come back from this and be different as a family. We did not get that. He passed away. So I went to my mom and I was like, look, I really want you to do this. And she had been a type 2 diabetic for more than 20 years, approaching her 70s. And she said, this doesn't reverse, baby. Like, I love you, but I've been on this medicine for a long time. But because she saw how passionate I was about it, she was willing to give it a try. And now she's like 3.5 years, totally reversed her type 2 diabetes. Wow. She is on all but like a half of a dose of a medication for her heart, but that was it. And she had been on keto for, I want to say 6 months, and she had been diagnosed with some blockages in her heart. And from diagnosis to us getting into an operating room, it took a couple of months. And so I was there in the hospital waiting for her to get back and have stents put into her heart. They wheeled her right back into the room where I was. And I was like, what happened? And she said, the blockages are gone. They're just gone. Wow. We don't have to put a stent in. So for us, it was like, okay, there's no question that we're going to stick to this. And could we maybe share what we're doing with other people in the hopes that they would have an experience like us health-wise and maybe save their dad where we were not able to save ours?
Yeah, that's so powerful. I think there is a level of commitment. Some of us, we know ourselves, and it's like me helping other people helps me. I don't know if you guys have any experience with AA or anything like that. People
say to us, how have you never had a cheat day? And to quote my good friend Steve over at Keto Chow, pain is a powerful motivator.
Yeah.
And like when you've experienced pain for almost, 30 years on your ankle and all of a sudden you're pain free, that's a real good motivator for me. But honestly, when we started our channel about a year after I started keto, so we don't have that whole documentation of me losing weight. Sure. It was kind of like we were looking at each other and going, we're about to be empty nesters. What are we going to do? We were asked, a lot of people were asking us about keto. So we're like, let's start a YouTube channel. It was kind of like a joke thing.
Yeah.
But then, we had a few subscribers. It was really slow growing. And then we went to KetoCon the last one that there actually was.
Okay.
And it kind of changed us because we were like, there's so many people here that just need a friend, that need community. Because we were used to, you know, when you have a poor self-image because you're obese your whole life, you walk around, your head is always down. You don't ever look up. You don't want to make eye contact with anybody. And when we were at KetoCon, we're like, wow, everybody here is different. Everybody is, because everybody was in the same situation, but we're like, people need community. And I think that's something that's really important with this lifestyle, is having community, because there's so many doctors and friends and family members that don't understand the lifestyle. Yeah. So we're like, if we can have community, and then we just fell in love with being able to be that community for people. But I tell people all the time, like, you guys, we ask you, please share your story. It's so important that you share your story, because your story is inspiring people. Your story, there's people out there who they think they're all alone and nobody understands what they're going through. Nobody else has had type 2 diabetes. And when you share your story, they're like, oh, I'm not alone.
Right.
And then I say, it's good for you because you can look back on where you came from. But secretly, I want them to share their story, because when I read one of our subscribers and they send us their story or they put it on our Facebook family group, it inspires me to keep going.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, that's just for me, when I get more from helping somebody else, like I feel like they're actually helping me more than I'm actually helping them.
Right. Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, it's not so much that I'm like, oh gosh, what would they think if they knew I did XYZ? But it's like, how am I going to tell them to do XYZ if I'm not doing XYZ?
Absolutely.
How do I stand in integrity there?
Yeah, I think that is definitely something that's always on my mind and on my heart. We've worked with children for years. I'm in children's ministry. This is my 30th year in children's ministry. And so integrity and, like, you know, what you're doing when no one's looking, that is very important to me. The thought that, like, you should do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And I think that this has been a great accountability partner for me, just having the YouTube subscribers. But yeah, that is every morning I think to myself, this is hard. It's hard to exercise. It's hard to eat right. There are a lot of temptations, but there are other people that maybe they're just starting out and it's even harder for them. Right. I can't say that, like, I'm in a circumstance, like maybe they don't, you know, I at least have a partner in life that is on the same page with me about this. And somebody out there is making the same decisions I am, and they don't have that. They don't have their kids cheering them on. They don't have, you know, parents who are doing this with them. So it's kind of like, put on your big girl pants, Rachel. Life is hard, and keep going forward.
Right, but it's, you know, it's totally understandable, because keto is short-term hard, long-term easy. Eating crap is short-term easy, long-term hard. And
so true.
Our brains are not wired to care about long-term in any given moment. It takes a lot of perspective, and we don't always have it. So you have to have other things to bring you back to that in the moment. And that feeling of, like, support or good codependence, right? Like, that you rely on people, or that people are looking at what you're doing. It does have an effect.
I think it's also strange for anybody who's been a lifelong dieter to be doing the same diets for so long.
I have for 4 years. Get bored because they're so used to changing.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Weight Watchers changes their whole point system every single year. Come January, everybody's sitting there like, what's new? What is 0 points? Or how are we going to do this? Or what do we get if we exercise? They're always changing it up because they're playing into this year is going to be the year that it sticks. Well, 4 years ago was the year that it stuck. And so
what do you do when it sticks?
Continuing like, oh my goodness, this is it. But then you have to keep doing it. Right. It used to be that people just dieted for an event, right? Like you would diet because it's high school reunion, or it is swimsuit season, or I want to look cute at Christmas. And then it'll be over. And then you'll pick up some new diet with the next life event that you want to look halfway decent for. So that is what I was used to in the past.
So lose, regain, lose, regain, lose, regain. There's no just sailing.
Right. Well, it's funny because, obviously we both put on a couple of pounds through COVID, like everybody did, And So last year, the beginning of the year, we decided to start really, switching things up. Now we still stay keto, but we started shifting more to eating more protein. Because like I said, when I first got started, it was very low protein.
Yeah, we all started in that time period where we were like, look out for the protein. It's going to get you.
And it was all about the fat. I can remember being upset, like worried that I didn't get enough fat in, and like drinking like a coffee before I went to bed with like 3 tablespoons of butter in it.
Or eating a half a stick of butter because you have no carbs left for the day and you have no protein.
You're
but
crying,
I didn't get my fat in.
This can't be right. But like you're gumming this butter and like is this health? Is this what health looks like? So it was confusing to start with for sure.
So last year, the beginning of the year, we started shifting over to more of like Dr. Tim Newman's 1-to-1 approach of looking at prioritizing protein. When we sit down and we eat our dinner, if we want to have some vegetables or something like that, that's fine. But the protein comes first because the protein, your body can't make protein. It's the one macro your body can't make.
Right.
And we started seeing a lot of results, so it's always been for us like tweaking, like what can we change here? And that's how we keep things fresh. Maybe let's do a month of eat a little bit more vegetables. Let's do a month of more eggs. And then in September, Dr. Berry challenged us to do beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And that for us was a game changer because 4 years in, we still didn't know what it felt like to be satiated.
We were still afraid of it.
We were like members of the Clean Plate Club. Like you have to finish what's on your plate. Mm-hmm. And so when he challenged that to us, he's like, guys, I want you to eat as much as you want, as many times a day as you want. But it can only be beef, butter, bacon, and egg, with beef being, and at first he didn't even tell us that beef could be any ruminant animal.
Right.
Yeah. And when we started it, we're like, oh, challenge accepted. I can eat 10 times a day as much as I want. And we started finding that I can't eat more than 1 or 2 meals a day when you limit me to just those 4 things. Because when we look at, I call them drive-bys. Like every time you walk in the kitchen, you open up the refrigerator and you grab something, or you open up the pantry and you grab something. And if I really added up, I was probably eating before that like 25 meals a day. If you think of every time you put something, if you think of every time you put something in your mouth, you're having a meal. Right. Like, walk past the refrigerator, let me grab a half ounce of cheese. Oh, there's a couple nuts. Let me grab. And when he took all of that away and said, eat as much as you want, and we would sit down with 1.5 pounds of ground beef for dinner, I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I'm still good the next day at 2:00 in the afternoon. Right. And it helped us to really get in touch with our satiety hormones. And it really changed everything for us. And then, so last month, Rachel was saying to me, I really like to drop those last couple pounds, because she didn't lose 1 pound on beef, butter, bacon, and eggs.
That don't seem fair.
But she lost a bunch of body fat, and she had like severe body transformation. Like, we had pictures up. We took them in our underwear. I couldn't even believe we did that.
Right.
But you see this like giant sculpting change of her. And so I said to her, I referred her back to when we were talking with you in Omaha, and you were talking about getting diet fatigue. And sometimes you just have to take a break. And you even talked about it in your spinning cycle thing, about where you took a break for a while. And I said to her, I want you to think about something for a minute. So we did beef, butter, bacon, and egg in September and October. And then in December, our challenge with our community was just stay keto. Like every year, think about everybody in America and around the world. What do? They go out and they gain a whole bunch of weight during the holidays. And then come January, they make a New Year's resolution to drop it. And they may lose 10% of what they put on in December. And then the following year, it's a rotating thing. So we challenged everybody, listen, have as much as you want.
Just stay keto.
Whatever you want to do, but just keep it keto. Don't have an off-plan day. We don't like to call it cheat days, because then you're labeling yourself a cheater. We say have an off-plan day. Don't have those. You want a piece of cake? Make sure it's a piece of keto cake for the holidays, something like that. And I looked at her and I said to her last month, I said, do you realize this is the first time in our marriage, and we're together 15 years, that neither one of us gained 1 pound in the month of December? And this is the first time from September and until February, you're the same exact weight, 1 pound up. That's an accomplishment that we've never experienced before.
And we didn't have to be crazy or anything, because I think that over the years, as we've tweaked it, you had weight loss, you had health gain, and then you start to get into like year 3 and year 4, your relationship with the addiction itself. And what do you think about yourself? Because year 1 and year 2, it's all about like what the diet can do for you, what this eating lifestyle can do for you, but you still have no confidence in yourself because you've let yourself down so many times that you're like, that the thought of eating till you're comfortably full means that I have to rely and trust myself. And I didn't trust my body anymore. I didn't trust my mind anymore. I need you to tell me exactly what's the numbers have to be? What does my plate exactly need to look like? Because I can't be trusted. And I don't think that that is a healthy place to languish. At some point, in order for me to truly like me, and I don't think that you can authentically love other people if you can't love yourself at all. You can't just be like, I'm going to skip that step. I'm going to just not love me and I'm going to love everybody else. I don't think that you can do that. And I needed to heal that relationship that I had with myself and say, like, Rachel, I've got some confidence in you that you could go through this process and actually learn something. And then once you find out when you're actually hungry, I'm going to trust you, Rachel, moving forward. And even when we're not on beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, to cut off when you're truly full and to eat when you're truly hungry. And I think that that has been just such a blessing out of this last year that we've been in this lifestyle, that I actually stuck with something long enough to start repairing my relationship with myself.
Totally. Because I think, when you first go on whatever approach you're on, it's all about the approach and the details. And ultimately, I don't know if you guys agree, I kind of think you will, that ultimately you realize your commitment is not to keto. Your commitment is not to fill in the blank way of eating. Your commitment is to your health. Mm-hmm. And keto is a tool, or exercise is a tool. They're all tools. But the relationship you really develop is with a commitment to your best health journey.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, Joe is a handy man. Like, he does a lot of repair work and all kinds of things. He's a Mr. Fix-It guy. And one of the things I learned early on in our marriage was he would say, let's invest in those right tools. Mm-hmm. The right tool for the job is in the long run going to save you energy. It's going to save you money. I remember the first time he bought a tile saw that was attached to a vacuum cleaner so that as you cut things, you didn't create a mess that you had to clean up behind. I was like, yes, I am sold. The right tool for the job will be good. The problem comes when in my own behavior, I look at this tool like keto, or I look at this tool like exercise, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to find just like a saw that's actually dull, and I'm going to try to make that work. Like, you have the tools, but you still are refusing to use them. And so I have to kind of stop myself and say, like, Rachel, are you using all of these things that you have? You have all these great tools. You've talked to experts in all of these different fields. And are you using them? Or are you just collecting knowledge, but not turning that knowledge into wisdom, right? Because like, I can spend all day on Instagram or Pinterest and gain knowledge, like more information. But if I'm not going to use it, it doesn't become wisdom just because like it's in my pocket. Like, I have to use that and do something with it.
Totally. And so you guys have had an experience in some ways like I did, where you started keto, had a lot of success, things were amazing. Then you were like, wait, protein. And then so you kind of changed some of that. And now even more recently, I know Rachel talked to Dr. Robert Siwas, and there was a conversation which was sort of like, look, you're in a very different metabolic place, and maybe you should take that into account. What's going on there?
Yeah.
So what happened was, we did beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and the numbers are skewed because when we did 2 sets of labs, we did a set of labs before we started. Okay. Because our whole thing when we started working with Dr. Barry on that was we wanted to show that it's okay to eat fat, because all of a sudden everybody was like, eat 200 grams of protein a day and 20 grams of fat.
Right.
Yeah. And we were like, there's a happy medium. And, going back to, Dr. Naiman's 1-to-1, there's a happy medium. Our body likes to be metabolically flexible. Our body likes change.
I couldn't imagine like one of our ancestors being like, oh, how much fat is in this meat that I just hunted? Like you have to be okay.
I'm going to eat the dandelion.
I need to only eat the white meat chicken because like, obviously health. You're right. It has to be somewhere a happy medium.
Yeah. So we wanted to show, and we wanted to see what would happen with our labs if we are only eating what pretty much everybody outside of the keto and carnivore lifestyle says is going to kill you, butter and beef and bacon, right? So we got our labs done, but those labs were after 4 years of being on keto.
Yeah.
So they were already pretty good numbers.
Right.
But we wanted to see, is this going to make it worse? What will happen with our cholesterol? We got all of our labs done. We were on beef, butter, bacon, eggs for 44 days, but the labs were actually on the 45th day.
Okay.
And
have you eaten anything yet, though?
No, we got them. They were done fasted.
We're still only powered by beef, butter, bacon, and eggs.
Yeah. And then even after we were done with beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, the whole great thing about that is it really is an elimination diet. Like get rid of anything that could be causing inflammation, like, maybe cheese or, any kind of sweetener. We really followed it strictly, like no heavy whipping cream, even though everybody thinks there's no carbs in heavy whipping cream, but we got rid of all of that stuff. So our labs, when we put out that video and Rachel's, I don't remember, her total cholesterol was like 530.
It was crazy.
It was high before, but then it was 530 and her LDL was 415. But then when you looked at the rest of the numbers and Dr. Barry had looked at them and I had sent them to Dr. Cywis and he's like, let's make a video about this. But then the holidays happened. And when you looked at all of the other numbers, if you took out the cholesterol, we were ridiculously metabolically healthy.
Yeah.
But the problem is you can see in there, like I'm experiencing the dawn phenomenon in the morning. And, I've got a fasting glucose at 8 a.m. of 90. And, when I wear my CGM, I'm usually like in the 80s and that's about where I sit. And then, everything else was good. When you look at people who were both, not type 2 diabetic yet, but on our way to it, it was amazing, and to look at what our fasting insulin was and what our remnant cholesterol was, or our VLDL. And the triglycerides, ridiculously low. But what Dr. Cywis was concerned with Rachel was she wasn't experiencing a dawn phenomenon. And her fasting insulin before beef, butter, bacon, and egg was like a 1.7.
Wow.
And he was like, you understand that like any normal doctor is going to look at that and go, you're a type 1 diabetic.
Right.
Now, it actually went up after 45 days of beef, butter, bacon, and egg.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I think she was eating more protein.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Dr. Cywis has asked her to do for a little while is not go off of keto.
Yeah.
And not go off of carnivore. And we eat probably 95% of our diet is meat. We have a few vegetables here and there. Every once in a while, we do indulge in a keto treat, but we still keep our total carbs at a certain level. And what he said to her, what you need to do is you need to, shock a lot of people in the keto space. You need to spike your insulin 1 or 2 times a day, preferably in the morning, because that will force your body to produce insulin so that you can get back to that dawn phenomenon. And she has gone beyond insulin sensitive and gone to insulin suppressed, where her body's just like, you're so fat adapted, you don't even need the insulin anymore. I don't need the sugar.
Right.
And so what he wants her to do is spike it.
and we don't want that. So
but the way she's spiking it is not like he said, like, he's like, the best way to do it would be a teaspoon of honey. He's like, but listen, you're a carbohydrate addict. You're not going to stop at a teaspoon of honey. So she is
he knows me.
Spiking it with eating maybe a healthy carb, like some avocado in the morning. Okay. Or a high protein, lower fat, like something where if we give her a bunch of protein, maybe she'll spike the insulin a little bit, because even protein will cause an insulin reaction. And so that is what she's doing. So we're staying where we're at. She's just shifted her breakfast to having something that could cause more of an insulin reaction other than just having like a buttered coffee or something like that.
Which is still good, because that was something that was, we sort of healed during beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And that was our relationship with eating at various times of the day. Because again, I lived in a terror of eating. I was an addict that needed some of my addiction of choice, which is food, every day in order to live. I need to continue eating in order to thrive. However, I was afraid to eat before 2:00. Like that, it became like bibbity bobbity boo Cinderella. Like, if you eat before 2:00, you turn into a pumpkin. Like that's what I was afraid of. So when we did beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and it was like eat anytime that you want to. And I was like, does that mean breakfast? Like when I actually wake up? And Dr. Barry was like, yeah, weirdo. I'm sure he was thinking weirdo. He didn't say it. He's so kind. He was just like, yeah, you could eat breakfast. And so, which makes a lot more sense based on my personal schedule. It was very hard for someone who gets up at 5 or 6 in the morning to wait until 2:00 before you have any kind of meal. And I'm somebody that goes to bed earlier. And so this was like, wow, this really worked. But again, I did not realize how sick I was in my mind, not in my body anymore, but still in my relationship with food. And that was never going to just go away. That is something that you still have to deal with, whether you like to or not.
Yeah, because prior to that, we were like, you have to intermittent fast every single day. And we have nothing against intermittent fasting or occasionally doing a long-term fast. But when you start eating to your watch instead of eating to your hormones and your hunger satiety hormones, that becomes an issue. And that's what we got to the point where we're eating on a watch. And then if maybe you think you ate too much that day, maybe I had a little bit too much heavy whipping cream, or maybe I had an extra keto dessert because it was someone's birthday. We got to go on a 24 or 48-hour fast because we got to make that up. And I remember when it finally struck me one day when we did that, I looked at Rachel and I was like, this is a binge and purge mentality. Yeah. Like, why are we doing this? Why? Yeah. If you screw up, and again, we didn't go off of keto, but if you eat too much, just chalk it up. Next day, get right back on it. Instead of this, like, let me punish myself too.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a sticky wicket, really, because I mean, I gave up. People are like, do you intermittent fast? They'll ask me and I'll be like, accidentally.
One day, yes, one day
now. And I have for a couple of years because I got stuck in that mindset of no more than 2 meals. 2 meals is plenty. And then, I remember learning that sometimes people on OMAD, for a variety of reasons, are less successful with fat loss usually. And I was like, okay, then it's 2. It's got to be 2 because I can't do 3.
It's the magic number.
Let's try 3, Kim. And things were better. And so it is hard to fast. People are like, fasting, it's like peanut butter and jelly with keto. And in some ways it is, but it's again that if a little is good, then a lot must be better generally doesn't apply to health.
Right. Yeah, it's very true. And I don't want to spend more time thinking about what I eat than I do about my children. I don't want to think more about what I eat than I do about working on my marriage or working at my job or helping people or, there's just a whole bunch of other things, trying, having an adventure. I don't want to get so bogged down in like personal data collection that I don't live this life that I'm now afforded to be well in. Like, what is the point of great labs if I'm not going to go live a life with them? If I'm not going to say like, okay, I'm healthy, now go have an adventure. I don't want to live still being like, but could it get better? But could it get better? You don't want to
exchange your eating disorder for orthorexia.
Exactly. So it's very important. Anytime you do sort of this like beef, butter, bacon, and eggs or an elimination or an extended fast or all of these things, again, tools in your toolbox of health. However, they're no substitute for living your life. And the better that you get, go use it. Go enjoy your life. Go have a conversation. Go sit down for coffee and chat with a friend. That's very important. It's not, you don't want to look inward so long that like, you lose the outside world too.
Totally. I love that. I think that perspective is so important on like food should be something you love, but it shouldn't be your whole life. And that health should be your focus and food should support your health, but you shouldn't be afraid of it. I think we don't talk enough about food anxiety
like that what you brought up was so important that we often, like, I don't know that many, I'm going to say I don't know that many women, but it might be, I don't know that many people who've been overweight in their past who have a relationship with food that isn't in some way abusive, that isn't restrict, overindulge, or just never eats more because they're afraid. Like I had a client recently say, I was like, you need some maintenance. You need to eat more for a while. And she's like, I still have a few pounds I'd like to lose in the future. And I'm afraid I'll get used to eating more.
Yeah. When you try to tell people reverse diet, because I know you've worked with Robert like we have.
Yeah.
And I think Robert is a genius when it comes to reverse dieting.
Yeah.
But I remember when we sat down with Robert a couple of years ago and he said, I want to know what you guys are eating. And I think at the time, Rachel was maintaining at around 1,300 calories. And he was like, I don't let any of my clients go that low. He's like, that is a ridiculously low amount of food. Yeah. He's like, I let them go there for maybe a week or two, when they're at their end of their cut. He was like, I want you to reverse yourself all the way back up to, it was like almost 2,000 calories.
Yeah.
And I remember Rachel being like, what?
I mean, this is 500 calorie girl. Like I'm afraid of that. But I will say,
and she eats over that now on a regular basis and maintains it. But it's amazing that our body adapts. And when you slowly give it that little more, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I want to lose weight. Well, now you just drop, 150, 200 calories off of what you've reversed your way back up, and you're losing weight eating more than you were before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
But you have to fill the void. You have to fix this too. You have to fix this. And once you're like, okay, I'm going to let something go in an area, you need to fill it with something positive, because otherwise we will just fill it with more craziness. And I will tell you, stress, it shows up on the scale. Like if you're overtired, you're not getting sleep, it shows up on the scale. Like if you're worried and stressed out, like I could tell you, I can do nothing, change have the same food every single day. On days where I'm like beating myself up the next morning, expect to see it on the scale. It has nothing to do with your plate, but you're retaining it behooves you to start working on your relationship with you. That's going to help you release, and you'll see more of what you want in your clothes, and you're going to see more of what you want in your measurements and on the scale. Because
not to mention that you'll be a happier human being.
Yes. Sometimes I think that we don't think that we can eat and be happy either. You can starve and be happy, but if you're eating, you should be angry all the time, and angry at somebody. Angry at me, angry at you. Did you do this? Did you slip something in extra? Did I have an extra little bit of butter? Is that why the scale looks like this? Who we mad at?
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of conditioning to undo. It's a lot of early training. I mean, I'm not the person that was a thin young adult and then gained weight in their 40s. I am a constantly overweight person. So I don't know if there are other types of brains different than the one I have, but it is very hard not to moralize weight. And when you're somebody that feels unacceptable, your every living moment feels like it has to be an apology for how unacceptable you are. And you have to pay penance with restriction and not indulging and not trying to sin. You're trying to prove your worthiness as a moral human being because you're projecting to the world that something is wrong with you. And you develop these thought patterns that are so disordered around virtue signaling by starving yourself. And
it's true. And I think, because I have that same brain that you do, and I don't know if you felt like this, the way I did, but I felt like people think I'm undisciplined in this eating area by the way that I look. So I give off a projection of I'm not disciplining myself in this area. And therefore, all of my other areas in life, I better be the best. You put I was the best at school. I'm going to work the most amount of hours.
I'm going to be the most helpful person on any committee.
Who is going to, and you need to join all of them because how many, it was like high school all over again. Like how many extracurricular activities can I be the team mom of? Like you put so much pressure on yourself and you're exhausted. You're exhausted because you're trying to prove to everybody, I'm a disciplined person. Please value me. Please let me have a seat at the table at work. Please let me have a seat at the table in kids' spaces, in our married couples, friends. Like I need to be the best at everything else because
I have so much to make up for.
And it's like, that's bull crap.
Right.
That I was everything that I needed to be, whatever I look like on the outside. First of all, that is not the totality of me. And if somebody is looking in the mirror and saying, that's the totality of myself, I hope that they hear this and they stop believing that, because they're so much more than what they're seeing in the mirror, and so much more than the pants in their closet, and so much more than their shirts. It's so much more than that. And you have nothing to prove. Get more education because it's what you love. Pursue things in your job place because it's what you aspire to do. It's your dream and it's your hope. Don't be doing things. Don't be joining extracurricular activities because your motivation is fear that people are not going to accept you because you look like you're undisciplined in your body. So I have to be super disciplined in other areas because you're just going to exhaust yourself.
Totally. I think that's so powerful. I mean, people can hear it and hear it and hear it, and it doesn't click until they live it a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, and so that's why I think it's okay to spend 2 years just focused on getting the details of the diet right, even if the details don't really matter as much as you think they do, because it gives you something to focus on besides how unacceptable you feel like you are. And then in the background, you can be starting to just inch towards the inner work that needs to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
First of all, I think people ask us all the time, what's the perfect way to do this? It's the way that makes it sustainable for you.
Yeah.
For me, carnivore is not sustainable. Dr. Sean Baker loves carnivore.
Yeah.
It's completely sustainable for him. For me, not sustainable. I want some sauerkraut once in a while. I want some broccoli once in a while, It's
corned beef and cabbage week.
But what's sustainable for you? And then you've got to find a place that you want to start and then tweak things. Like we had a subscriber who joined us on beef, butter, bacon, and egg. And he was like, I never had that magic weight loss. In fact, I put on 10 pounds. And if you understand the challenge that Dr. Berry put out was you're not going to gain fat if you're really doing this strictly of beef, butter, bacon, egg. You're not going to gain fat. You may gain muscle and you may gain bone density, but you won't gain fat if you're doing it correctly. And you may have some body recomposition. And so I said to him, what are you doing? And so he sent me a whole list and he was eating like 5 or 6 times a day. And I'm like, where are your electrolytes at? And he's like, well, listen, here's the thing. Like, I really just cannot do the electrolytes without either the Redmond Relight or the Elements. He's like, I don't like plain electrolytes. I tried like just drinking like the unflavored or the keto chow drops. And it's just, I'm not drinking nearly as many as I was before. And so I'm like, here's what I want you to do. I know what Dr. Berry said is no sweeteners. I want you to just add your Redmond Relight back into your diet. Drink 3 or 4 of them a day. If that is the only way that you are going to get your electrolytes in, then do it. A week later, he called, he goes, I dropped 12 pounds. So I'm like, okay, well, that's what works for you. So you have to find what works for me may not work for you. And you have to slowly tweak things. And, some people can get away with, like Robert can get away with eating 85% of his calories from fat.
Right.
I can't. Robert and Danny Vega, they're beasts. Danny Vega can get away with eating some sweet potatoes and jicama and having those healthier carbohydrates once in a while.
Well, I mean,
I don't work out for 3 hours a day.
Metabolic rate is kind of through the roof. And so to keep them from starving, they have to eat an incredible amount, so that would be a lot of fat. Because they don't need to keep adding protein for energy. They need to add extra fat for energy.
Right. And that's what works
Vega
for them.
Is doing it through some extra carbs too.
Yeah. And I think that you have to sort of have a Pollyanna spirit about this. And I know that kind of irks people a little bit, but you have to sort of play the glad game every day because you're so aware of what you don't get to have. And if you choose to point your vehicle in the direction of, let me just be looking at everything I don't have in this way of eating, it will be very easy to find that. You will get to that destination of frustration town. Like you will be the mayor of it. Right. But if you choose, I am not going to focus on what I don't get to eat. I'm going to focus on what I do get to eat, on the health that I'm gaining, on sticking with it. You're just deciding to be optimistic every single day going in, because that's a huge speed bump. If you're just like, when is this going to be over? Well, that attitude is going to make it feel like an eternity.
Right. I mean, Joe is clearly the best husband on the planet, clearly, right? But Rachel, if you spent every day with like every guy you met being like, I bet he's awesome, I wish I could hang out with him, he's very handsome, your marriage would suffer.
That's right. That's absolutely right. As good as he is, he would be absolutely eclipsed about what I think is more fun somewhere else. I don't even know, right? We don't even know.
It's only a fantasy when you're thinking about it, and every fantasy is better than reality.
Exactly. Like that Joe always says, I'll be watching something that's basically like a fairy tale. And he's like, turn the porn off, right? Because that's like the porn.
Yeah, she'll watch a Korean drama or something. I'm like, I can't live up to this. It's a fantasy that doesn't exist, that will never exist.
I am always going to look bad compared to a plutograph that wants to take you on like an airplane for our dinner at an Italian restaurant in Italy tonight. I can't.
Exactly. You want Italian? We're off to Rome.
Yeah, I can't. I don't have that. There's no helicopter. Where am I even going to park the helicopter? Like our homeowners.
It's the same with food, right? Because we can envision what that food is and what it will taste like and the experience. And 1 time out of 10, it is that wonderful. Let's just say.
Yes.
But 9 times out of 10, like if you're like, what was this about? What was I thinking? This isn't any better than this other thing. It's just different.
Right.
I think the biggest mistake, if you ask me like, what is the biggest mistake people make when they get started on keto? And that is looking for lookalikes to what they ate on the standard American diet.
Yeah.
Like going, this tastes, I want a cookie that's as good as an Oreo. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The sweeteners are different. You can get close, but until you look at it and be like, this is good enough. Right? Like, I don't need it to be that. I just need it to give me that flavor. Like, your recipes are amazing. And you don't have a bunch of recipes that are like, well, this is as good as a chocolate cake that you got from Outback Steakhouse. No, but your recipes are amazing and they're full of flavor. And we need to learn to be satisfied in that and stop trying to replicate what we were eating before, that, by the way, got us to where we're at right now anyway.
Right. So it may have tasted good. It was like the bad boy that you dated in high school, but like, what kind of future do you have with this? Right. But I do agree with you when you say like, be careful when it comes to lookalikes, because you're going to make a big bowl of spaghetti, regular spaghetti that you grew up in, and then you're going to ask like a palmeri noodle, a heart of palm, to do the same exact thing and taste the same.
A vegetable.
I mean, that is a lot. All right. Like this spaghetti squash or whatever it is that you're asking it to do, like it can't do it. Okay. Like it just can't do it. So like, stop making this poor heart of palm like feel bad about itself. Okay. It's doing the best its heart of palm can do. It's putting its heart into it. All right. It's never going to be spaghetti made by your grandmother in Italy. It's just not.
Right.
So you're going to have to learn to like other things.
And there is a place where on keto or low carb or whatever, when you stop having certain foods that sort of hijack your sensation system, you realize how amazing the natural food tastes.
Yeah.
Like when it's like if you're constantly on drugs, sunshine isn't that bright, right? It's like you're altering your natural experience. Whereas when you spend enough time eating sort of more, farm to table kind of food, I'm not even saying you have to be keto or you have to, but if you eat more like nature-based, your appreciation of subtlety goes through the roof in a way that, like, to me now, I mean, I still have the nostalgia and the love of certain foods from my past. And if you fed them to me, I would enjoy it. But if I'm really being truly honest, do I enjoy it better than like an amazing Greek salad at like the height of the vegetable season with this very specific cheese and just so, and like, no, like I don't, it's not better. It's just different.
Right.
I think that are the things that we would put on this pedestal of like, this is amazing. Like, this is why God gave us taste buds. Those are really there. There's like a top 10 probably for most people, and everything else that we sort of miss once your palate has come back. Because I can remember the first time that we had a salad and didn't have any dressing, and I could taste the textures and I could taste the flavors that were different instead of everything just tasting like a big ball of ranch dressing, right? Like I could taste all of the different textures and all that. That, like you're saying, that tasted amazing. But I find that a lot of times people what they're crying out for wasn't even that great. Like if I'm crying out for, gosh, I remember all of those yakisoba noodles. It's like, really? Like that? I mean, yes, I don't eat those anymore, but were they really worth saving for my diet? What am I really missing out because there's no more ho-hos in my diet? I think a lot of times we elevated a lot of stuff that really wasn't that great. Mm-hmm. We just remember eating them and thinking like, this is just the best thing ever. But you were eating it with a different muted palate. Like you're saying, I didn't know what sunshine
You're not the same person you were then. When you dated that bad boy, you were a teenager. And if you dated him now, he would be incredibly boring.
Exactly.
I think it's interesting because probably about a year ago, we were sitting down talking and we were just talking about how I think we are far enough into our journey. Like people have asked, like, why didn't you never cheat at the beginning? And like, because I knew myself and I knew me. I knew I was a carb addict. I knew, like Chris likes to say, like, 1 is not enough and 10 is too many.
Yeah.
Like I was the person that would go to Outback Steakhouse and literally eat like 10 loaves of that bread.
Yeah.
Like that was my favorite, bread and cheese. So I knew that if I gave myself a taste of that, I wasn't going back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, are there ever a time where I'm like, hey, I'd love a piece of Costco pizza? Yeah, once in a while, but I'm not having one piece. I'm having the whole pie.
Right.
And so about a year ago, we were talking, I think I've gotten past that. I think I've gotten to the point where I think I could have a little something and not be impacted by it and just move on. And so we said to each other, if there is ever a thing like on our birthday or anniversary or Christmas where you just absolutely, we're out on a nice vacation, we see something and I just really want that. Like maybe we go to Universal Studios and we see some gorgeous dessert or even a regular food, like sauerbraten or something. I don't know, anything that we're going to allow ourselves to have that because we'll just jump right back on it the next morning. And I have yet to come across that thing that is
that you were like, yeah, let's do it.
Right. Like you would think that would be like going to like Voodoo Donut or something. Like I haven't come across it yet. And I've tried. I mean, like, we're going to go on this trip and I'm going to go have, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'd rather just go to, Fogo de Chao.
Yeah.
So same on the first part. I did not step off the straight and narrow for 2 years on keto because I knew that I would just roll, like, it's like step off the path and just roll down the hill.
We've done it before.
Yes, I have lived this story. I don't need to try it out again. But now I can, and I actually do. Like if I'm going out somewhere special for dinner and I used to, it's very easy to do. I'd be like, oh, the steak comes with a little bit of potato. And I used to be like, could you hold the potato? And they would be like, sure, no problem. Right. But now I'm like, well, you can leave it on there. And the kinds of restaurants I go to, literally you're getting like 4 mini potatoes. It's not like a pile of mashed. It's like, it's just in a mix of other things.
You're not going to Applebee's where they're giving you protein like this and it's all sides.
A vat of mashed potatoes.
Exactly. It's like one of those fancy places with it's like, you barely get anything. And I'm like, okay, well, they can leave that in. I'd like to experience this dish as they designed it. And then when I go out with my family, there'll be like 6 of us and we'll order 2 desserts. And,
Nice.
We'll just all have a bite. And I'm like, oh, I can do that experience now. And the next day, I'm not driving by Dunkin' Donuts. I'm just back to my normal routine, and it's not a thing. But I know that I have internal rules with myself that if I did notice the next day it was different, then I'm going to have to reassess my relationship with my flexibility.
Well, and you're like me. I think you've worked on that relationship with you where you're open to have like, I trust you again. It's just like any addict. I didn't trust this addict. And so I didn't put them in like the driver's seat, and I just didn't trust myself. So as we worked on our relationship, me, myself, and I, and journaled a lot, I think that's very important to like journal your experience, talk to somebody, get into therapy. I think it's a very good thing as you try to get back in touch with yourself, and kind of you need some mediation in your relationship between you and yourself. I think that then, yes, you can say, okay, Kim, this is what we're doing. Like, we're going out, we're going to enjoy the day. And then tomorrow, when we're not at a restaurant of the caliber we are at last night, and we're at home and we're making breakfast, lunch, and dinner for ourselves, then we're back to what we know is going to be the best for our future. And you can trust yourself to have that conversation. And that is such a victory. That is so good. And I hope that people continue to have a dialogue with themselves, have like a thought journal, a feelings journal, keep in communication with yourself, and determine yourself to always share and celebrate wins. Because, when you're losing a whole bunch of weight, it's like every 10 pounds or every size, you have this win and you have this celebration. And so it's like 4 years the same. Like, how long could you?
I didn't gain weight again.
I used to be heavy. Like, I stopped believing it, right? Like, I have to go to the photo album and like see if it's really true. Like, how long ago was that? So you need to have like other celebrations for yourself, like that moment where you're like, hey, last night I went out with my family. I was able to eat a reasonable amount of potatoes. We all shared a beautiful dessert together. And then I came back home and got right back on track. Like, I think a party should ensue after we're able to make those good decisions, because it's a proof that we can trust ourselves again. And I think that's really important.
Well, it's such a good point. We could be talking forever. It's such a good point, because when we're overweight, whether we're overweight or not, but when we allow ourselves to constantly reward ourselves with food fantasy, we get just like so much dopamine hits, right? We plan our food, we think about our food, we acquire the food, yay, dopamine. And then when we're dieting and we get on the scale and the scale's gone down, we get our fix. Addicts love dopamine, right? That's
it's funny because I say all the time, we say it on our channel, we say the scale's the devil and the mirror is a liar. And the reason we say that is because I can still look in the mirror today and I still see the 300-pound Joe. I don't see the 189-pound Joe. I see the 300-pound Joe. But then the scale for me, and not everybody is like this.
No.
But I have a horrible relationship with the scale. Here's my relationship with the scale. Get on the scale. The scale is up. You're doing something wrong. Let's get drastic.
Right.
You get on the scale is down. Hey, you did something right. And the fact that yesterday you ate an extra 500 calories of fat didn't affect you. Let's go reward ourselves. You can do that again today.
Right.
Never did that scale tell me you're doing good. It either said you can go have another cheat or you need to go starve yourself. But that's my relationship. So what I tell people is go by how you feel. Measure yourself. Take pictures. Pictures don't lie to you the way the mirror lies to you.
Right.
measure your clothes, go to a thrift store, buy a pair of jeans that is 2 sizes too small, and then every month get in it.
See where you're at.
Use that to measure yourself over the scale. I don't think the scale is bad. I think you want to see a downward trend, but if you're like me and you're getting on it 10 times a day and you literally get on it in the morning and then go to the bathroom and then get back on to see how much weight did you lose when you get to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then once in a while, it's actually up. So now what did I do wrong? Right?
I pooped wrong.
I must stop
I did that wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that you need to start working on a list for yourself of rewards that are not related to food.
And we did that. We rewarded ourselves and our children. Everything was food-based. We're going to take you to McDonald's. We're going to take you for an ice cream. We're going to go out to eat. And now our rewards are experience driven.
Well, you need to have things that you can do during the day, things that you can do at night, things that cost money, things that are free, like all kinds of things. I would have at least 10 things that you love, like would be a true reward to you to have on tap to reward yourself and to celebrate things during your journey. You got to get in the practice of still celebrating life and just not making every reward for yourself food.
Totally. Yeah. And that was kind of my point, was like, sometimes we then get into our maintenance time. I think of maintenance as a verb. I'm not saying it's like you've crossed the finish line, you've won. It's an action word. But when you're in a period where the scale isn't the reward anymore, and the junk food isn't a reward anymore, it's more of a punishment, then what's the reward? How are you going to get your fix of what you're used to doing? You need to find new ways to reward yourself and acknowledge yourself and win at something. And, we don't change that orientation towards goals. But then when you've achieved all your goals, you're pretty lost sometimes, and you need to reclaim what your next thing is.
Yeah, because otherwise, I think that you continue to have this like gain 10, lose 10 pounds. That 10 pounds that we're always just kind of fighting. It's like the same 10 pounds, or it's like the same size. It's one size where you're kind of always circling around it. Like sometimes you hit it and sometimes you're outside of it. You need something else to celebrate because you've made yourself such a small sphere. We went from being like, wow, look at how much change. I mean, it's just drastic change, to living your life within a 5-pound bubble or one size. Then you like get bubble.
Like weird and fixated, and you get boring. And
you're angry. You're just angry. Like you're ticked off all the time. And then, what do? We, instead of WebMDing it, because now we don't have the medical concerns, right? Like, so, used to be like an ache or pain, like WebMD, like go find out what terrible thing. Like I have, hand foot right now. So like, what is that? So we don't do WebMD anymore. Instead, we go to like Instagram or some sort of
What's the hot new whatever.
What's the hot new whatever? Or what is somebody that's been doing the right thing for a week and they look fantastic? And gosh, I'm like still in this same size 5-pound sphere. So,
right. And no one is like acknowledging that most people on Instagram are on steroids and things like that.
Has anybody put up a picture on Instagram where it was the first picture? Like, boom, you took a picture.
Without like lighting and editing and.
Yes. And even though that, you're still being like, yeah, but it's still not fair. Like it's still, so you have to get yourself out of that headspace forcibly. And that is to find things that you're like, this is crazy, but I'm working toward. Like if I continue to just keep eating the way that I'm eating, if I just stick to keto this month, if I just stay on plan, and that's the goal. If I have a goal of like, I'm going to exercise a certain amount, or I'm going to get this many steps in, then honey, I am buying those $200 shoes. Like what? Like that'd be so crazy. Right. Or I'm going to buy this, I'm going to get my hair done at some expensive salon, or I'm going to go ahead and, we're going to buy a hot tub and like go in it, like we're going to do things that are crazy. Because it used to be the most exciting thing I could think of is wearing a size 0 pair of pants. Okay, so I've worn a size 0 pair of pants. Am I ready for a coffin now? No. So I've got to come up with what else would be exciting and fun to do. So we're going to try snorkeling, or not snorkeling, scuba diving, which I'm very scared of, but like, we're going to try it anyway. We're trying, just different. We started paddle boarding. We started camping. We never, we did tent camping before, but now we do glamping. We're going to do stuff. If I'm small enough to fit on amusement park rides, we're going to go to amusement parks. Like, we're going to live our life, and that's how we're going to reward ourselves.
And you're absolutely right to point it out. I think that's why so many people still obsess around 5 pounds that honestly no one will ever notice you lost. And no one really cares about, and you're just circling about these 5 pounds that pretty much only exist in your mind. And it's because you've never lived a life where your primary goal orientation isn't about your weight, and you're scared to find something else.
Right. Like, what do I do now? Like, if I am not constantly hating myself and worried about my weight, then like,
who am I?
What else am I going to do? Like, who am I? Yeah. Like, who am I? This is a long time. This is, we're going on 46 years of like, this is how I feel about myself. Actually liking myself and venturing out and say, I'm not going to think about, like, food is not going to be every single thought that I have. Like, what are we having for dinner? What are we having for breakfast? Like, I'm going to have other thoughts and conversations. Like, I think that is just really, really important. And like you're saying, no one cares about those 5 pounds. They're not even thinking about it. You're thinking like it's the only thing that matters, and they're not thinking about it at all.
Yeah. It's like people are like as focused on that 5 pounds as they were focused on the 100 pounds they used to have to lose.
Yes.
And it's just like, we don't really have perspective anymore.
No. And as much as like, I could just like punch myself and be so mad and angry at myself. And yet I know in my heart, I'm somebody's goal weight right now.
Right.
How dare I hate myself? How dare I like spend so much time thinking about like, what am I going to do with these 5 pounds when someone's going like, I'm in a life or death situation. And if I can't start to get off these pounds, I can't have gastric bypass surgery, or I can't have some medical things taken care of. Like I had a friend recently that got a double knee replacement and needed to lose weight so that they could be able to go through physical therapy after that was over. How dare I fixate on 5 stupid pounds when there's life out there? Like there's people with much bigger
like,
problems.
If you want to lose more weight, great. But like the obsession with it is probably what's causing it to not get fixed.
Bingo.
And I think that's something that we really got out of the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Was that, we were that. I mean, everybody thinks we have it all together. We don't have it all together. Like,
I don't think anybody.
We don't have it all together.
Don't have it all together? What?
I mean, and now we put ourselves out there. When we did Beef Butter Bacon Egg, we decided to start vlogging because we wanted to show everybody the whole journey. Yeah. And we've continued to vlog, and we put ourselves out there, and we get comments from people like, I can't believe that you still struggle with XYZ. I'm sorry. I mean, these are
you
my
are
issues.
A human.
But the one thing that we have gotten out of it is, you know what? Would I like to get back to the weight that I was before COVID? And a lot of that had to do with sleep and stress over COVID, which I think I'd have with a lot of people. Yeah, I'd love to get back down to like 182. But you know what? If it takes me 5 years, who cares? I'm happy where I'm at. I'm not obsessing over what I eat anymore. I still have to, I look back and I see the picture. I'm like, I was probably even too thin back then. But then I look at my starting weight pictures, and those were actually after I was on it for about a month. The pictures that I have of before and after, that was a month after starting keto. Like, I don't even know what I look like.
There's so many of us that were like, I didn't even bother taking pictures because nothing ever worked. Why did I bother?
It was like I was there at the birth of the child and the graduation of the child. And I don't know. I just have pictures of the child in between.
There is maybe 10 pictures of me and her together between the day we got married and the day I started keto. People say, where's all your pictures before? I have 2. I wasn't
I'm halfway behind that wall.
Right.
Yeah. You see that toss pillow? I'm behind the toss pillow.
But I've had to learn that
this was me all the time.
Every time. We have jokes. Like I do have pictures that like Beth has taken where I've gone to different birds, like friends of mine. And they're like, Rachel without a toss pillow is like the non-scale victory of the century, because you would just like grab and hide behind something.
But over the biggest thing we got in the last 6 months is I'm happy where I'm at. And if I drop those last 7 or 8 pounds, great. And if I don't, I'm not where I started. And my labs and Rachel's labs show that metabolically, we're nowhere near where we started. And I'll finish with this. I tell people all the time, and I'm surprised at the answer. What I ask people all the time is, if you went on keto or carnivore, or I love Dr. Berry's term of the proper human diet because it encompasses all of us, and you never lost a pound, not 1 pound, but you got rid of your diabetes and you got off of metformin and you got off of your heart medication and you got off of your arthritis medication and you had perfect blood pressure, would you be happy with yourself? I can honestly say now I would. If I gained all my weight back, but I had all of that metabolic health, I would be okay. I like the number that I see on the scale, but I also have to, I use this reference all the time. And that is, you know what? The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, weighs about 270 pounds. I don't look like him. So would I be okay with the scale saying 270 if I looked like him?
Of course.
But a lot of people say no.
Wow.
Because we're so fixated on that number. But I'm finally fixated on my health. And the fact that when I told Dr. Sybes my goal is to live to be 100, I think it's achievable, even though my dad died at 64 and her dad died at the same age.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally ultimately I'm almost 6 years into keto at this point. And I finally, it's been building, but I'm finally like, this is who I am now. I'm not really worried about my choices. I still have health concerns because I'm a human in a meat bag, right? We have health stuff come up. Yeah. But I am not concerned that I'm tanking my health.
Right. Yes.
I just feel like a elementally different person in regards to health and food, my relationship to food, my relationship to my body. I'm not scared anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not scared I'm going back.
It's like we went from being an adversary to an advocate for ourselves. And I know that we can eat wherever. There's always something. We're outer aisle people. We're, the fresh outdoor market. Like if we go to a farmer's market, we can find something that we want to eat. We're eating real food. Right. So I'm not concerned that way. And I do think that I'm in partnership with my health now. Yes. I don't have to be worried about information. We go and get labs. If the labs say, just like my labs say, hey, you got to
make some tweaks.
You got to make some tweaks, Rachel. I'm okay with that. We can do that. We can change things up a little bit, but at least I feel like I'm on my own team.
Right. You're not a victim of your health anymore. You're a partner in it.
Yeah. I'm not the stumbling block that I used to be. And I hope that we can continue to just show people that just regular people can do this every single day consecutively and continue it. That's what I want to show is you can keep going. You can keep doing this. If you, for some reason, go through keto a little bit and then you come back, we'll still be here, right? We'll still be doing this. Hey, welcome back. There's no judgment. We'll still be here. And hopefully we can, if people will look up and they're looking for a friend, we'll catch their eye because, there's a seat at the table. You can sit by us anytime, no matter what.
Right. It's like the Motel 6. We'll keep a light on for you.
We'll keep a light on for you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's been so super to have this chat. Thank you for joining me. I think.
Sorry it took so long.
No, I'm a talker too. So I'm so glad. Oh, you mean just, it's been so long.
No, I'm looking at the time.
Oh, okay.
We don't know how, we say all the time, we don't know how to shut up.
Yeah, no, I am so happy that we had this talk. So I will put links to all your stuff in the notes so people can find out how to find you. You know, if you just say it, people might not hear it. So I want to make sure there are good links. But Thanks. What do you want people to know as we close out? You
can do this. You're not alone. Keto and the proper human diet is completely sustainable, regardless of what anybody says. But the most important thing is to love yourself and get involved in a community, whether it's people local or an online community like our Facebook group or Kim's Facebook group. You can't do this alone.
And I think that you have to just come to the realization that you want to do it, and you're willing to put the work into it. It's a lot of work. This is, 4 years, 5 years of continuing to walk in that same direction. We've been in the same keto direction for a long time. So does it take time? Yes, it does. But we were the sickest of the sick. Our whole family was the sickest of the sick. So I have hope. I have big hope for you, because if we can reverse what was going on in our body and in our family and all the medications that we had to go through, then I have a great hope that you will see change if you will stick with it. If you will decide, like, this is it, I'm going to do this and I'm going to stick with it, I think you will have great results.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for all that you do for everyone in the community. You guys are pillars of the community and bringing a lot, and you have fun videos on YouTube. So there's lots of things for people to explore to get to know you guys better if they don't already. So thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks so much, Kim.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us.